Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ask the Educator podcast. My name is Adam Okada. Our host, Kevin Anderson, can't be here with us today, but I am very excited because we have Amy DeGraw from HSPA here to recap our October 2025 webinar on Sterile Processing Week and a slice of appreciation, some ideas for appreciating and recognizing our staff. But Amy, thank you for being here, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little about your background.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Amy DeGraw. I'm a clinical educator at HSPA. I've been in that role since January of this year. So very excited to be participating in more education for the industry. I have over 20 years experience in SPD, started out as a tech, like everyone else, just kind of walked into the department, needed a job, and slowly worked my way up. I've worked as a supervisor, educator, worked as an educator at one of a technical college in Wisconsin, um, time as an IP. So just kind of well-rounded, a little bit of everything to kind of have a well-rounded SPD view.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very similar background to mine. I started as a tech, had no idea what it was, and my dad brought home a flyer for a sterile
Yeah,
processing course. And then that 20 years later, I thought, well, this would be a nice, way to get my dad off my back about a job. And
right.
then 20
It
years
was
later,
just
here I
kind of
am
a
still.
stopping off point. Like you didn't
Right.
expect it to turn
Yeah.
into a career. And it's
Yeah. It
my
wasn't,
dad was an yeah.
I didn't realize it was like a pit of quicksand that I was going to fall into. So,
Well, my dad was an OR nurse, so I mean, I remember growing up, going into the hospital and going into the OR and seeing this space. So it was kind of a natural fit when I walked in. I'm like, oh, I understand where I am. I know what I'm doing. But it definitely was not intended to be my career, but it is something that I love. Obviously, I'm very passionate about. I would not have stayed as long as I did if I hated it. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here.
yeah. And we're happy to have you in the industry. So, let's talk about recapping our webinar a little bit and talk about the recognition and how important recognition can be in a professional setting.
So mostly, we're talking about professional setting, but like, let's just talk about recognition. Recognition is such an important part of, just your basic human needs. You need to have that value and recognition just to feel good about yourself, about your work. So having that value in your job is really important. And, how are you receiving that recognition and value? How are you giving that recognition and value is really important to look at it, full spectrum. A lot of people are like, well, they should be thanking me for what I do. And, turn it around. Are you giving that gratitude just as much as you're receiving that gratitude? So it's really an important part of that professional setting because you want to, build a culture where it is normal to say thank you. It's normal to recognize what people are doing because you're going to have a department that just overall is, equipped to deal with the issues that we see day in and day out. You have that resilience knowing that the work that you do is valued.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that you nailed it with the value of recognition. And then when things hit the fan, because it does in sterile processing, do you have that resilience to pull together? And it's really those positive interactions and feeling good about your job. Because if you're not getting that recognition and then bad things happen, it's very easy to kind of throw in the towel and just be like, well, this is somebody else's problem now, right? It's
Right.
that recognition and value is such an important thing to all of us just as a human need. And we talk about that in the webinar, how important that basic human need of getting recognized for the work you're doing is. But what are
Right.
some ideas that you have to recognize sterile processing professionals?
I mean, just day to day, we had talked about it in the webinar that, you should be recognizing your staff at least once every 7 days. So how are you going to be doing that? A simple thank you, but make sure that thank you is like honest. You're not just saying, "Oh, hey, thanks for showing up today." You don't want to be that sarcastic, like meaningless, like thank you. Like,
I have to be sarcastic, Amy. I have to be.
right.
It's a
So you do
requirement.
you hey, thanks for coming in a half hour early. Hey, thanks for jumping into decontam when it got really busy. Like, hey, you did a really good job taking that phone call and handling that customer, in a really difficult time. Personalize that thank you. And it doesn't have to be a long exchange, just a moment to recognize them, like pull them aside. Hey, thanks for that. That's really important. Like that one-on-one connection when doing that, recognizing of a staff member.
Yeah, and
Even looking at,
the authenticity that you talked about in the
yeah,
webinar also. I mean, I think just being truthful in what you're saying and meaning
mhm,
what you're saying. You can't just be like, pulling something out of nowhere and saying thank you for it. That it's really got to be specific and make eye contact and make sure they know it's for them.
right.
And that one-on-one recognition, again, like it just makes you feel good inside, like when you get that recognition. So I really do like, what the way you talked about in the webinar.
Yeah, I think the thing is like, often at huddles or department meetings, we're like, oh, we've been doing such a great job, everyone. Like, yeah, that's great, but that's just kind of canned and it's very generalized. So making sure you are, even at a huddle or at a department meeting, like give that recognition in the moment, but then reiterate it later on. Like, hey, this past month, like, here are the good things that happened in this department. Again, be specific and be like specific about the person. Adam did a really great job doing this. Amy really did a good job taking care of this. Like, letting others know that as well. Sometimes people don't always like that public recognition. So, like, being aware of that, but, having those opportunities are sometimes helpful because coworkers don't always know what that other person's doing. So sometimes it's good to highlight what that other person's doing. Like we
Yeah.
had talked in the webinar about like an employee recognition board where we're able to put those recognitions up on a board. You could do it for a coworker. You could be a manager doing it for an employee. It could be an employee doing it for a manager. Like just a way to do it where it's not everyone's always comfortable with that direct contact of that, going up to someone and saying thank you. This is a way to get people comfortable with saying thank you and acknowledging each other without necessarily having to have those one-on-one moments because those might be uncomfortable for people. I wasn't always comfortable saying thank you to someone directly, and this was a good way to do it indirectly, but at least I was getting into the habit of saying thank you to my coworkers.
Yeah, I mean, and the processing recognition board and putting that in the department, I think is a great way to. Honestly, it takes what 20 seconds to like write
Hmm.
a little thank you to somebody and to put it on the board. And it has a small amount of time investment in doing something like that, but it
Right.
means so much to the person who receives it. So again, just making them feel like they're at home, like they're part of something bigger than themselves, and just boosting them up a little bit to improve the morale in the department. I love the idea of the employee recognition board. Uh, One thing that we talked about in there was some ideas for sterile processing weeks. If you want to go look at those, you can watch the full webinar and see those ideas that we had to acknowledge staff during those weeks. But one thing that we wanted to talk about here was some fun, low cost ways that we could recognize and engage with staff or with our coworkers during sterile processing week. Do you have ideas that are like low budget? Because sometimes we don't get a
Yeah.
high budget for parties and sterile processing.
Yeah, I mean, the
Um,
dollar store was my friend. Like,
yeah,
because we don't like SPD doesn't get much of a budget if they get any budget. There were times where I would be spending money to do those things, and dollar store you get your party supplies, you can get birthday cards, thank you cards. There's a lot of fun things you get. The dollar store I don't even think is a dollar anymore, so I don't know. It might be $1.50, $1.25. Um, but it's still a low cost way. But like I had a drawer with just party supplies. And so, go decorate someone's locker for their birthday. That a staff member got certified over the weekend, have some sort of small celebration just like for them, like, hey, great job, you achieved this huge milestone, you know. We had talked about in the webinar displaying those certifications. Is there a way to display everyone's certification so whoever walks into your apartment sees that how much value you put on education and just furthering your techs with their education? Like getting certified is it really is a big deal. If you look online on like the Facebook pages for SPD, like a lot of people are putting on there like I passed my test today, like, and all these people are celebrating them. Like you should be doing that in the department. They shouldn't have to be going to
absolutely.
Facebook to find that recognition. You should be giving them that recognition
Yeah,
in the department. Like you should be
for
like
sure.
cheering them on. Like great job. Like good job. We knew you could do it. Like, this is a huge milestone for you.
Yeah, and it shows your priorities, I think, as a leader or a manager in a
Mhm.
department too, or an educator. What are our priorities? What are the things we celebrate? And don't make it so that the only time they hear from you is when something bad happens. If they
Right.
get that idea that the only time the manager recognizes me is when I've done something wrong, it starts to become a very negative work environment. All those positive things they might be doing, going above and beyond for people, those stop happening,
Mhm.
and people start putting in the bare minimum of effort to avoid getting in trouble. And that's
Right.
the kind of culture we want to avoid. Is we want to avoid that I do the bare minimum type of work ethic. Do you have
Right.
any final thoughts on takeaways or things and that people can do for sterile? I know this is going to come out after sterile processing week, but
But I think,
ideas for
yeah,
recognizing staff all the time.
all throughout the year, I mean, just find fun ways just to kind of highlight your staff. On the webinar, we talked about like having badges that your staff can earn. So once
Love that.
they, decontaminate a certain amount of trays, they get a badge. So have milestones for different time, they completed, 500 trays, or, as every 500 trays, they get a badge, something, just something to show that, we recognize that you're doing this work. Just find fun ways to like recognize them. Like the thank yous obviously are very meaningful. People want those recognition, but finding fun ways to engage the staff. I know we talked about games and how can we make games fun, but yet educational, just to kind of engage with the staff, like things throughout the year, just to keep them engaged and know that they feel valued, and really prioritizing like their happiness and their value.
Yeah, and I think that you nailed it. I love the badges idea. I think that is an
Mhm.
incredible idea. More people should be doing stuff like that, but really get creative. Think outside the
Mhm.
box as far as how do I recognize the work that they're doing? I think our go-to is always pizza parties, and we made that
Yeah.
joke during the webinar that that's the only way that you can acknowledge them. But there's not. You can do so many different things, and I love that you had so many great ideas for recognizing staff. And one more time, I appreciate and acknowledge that you came on the podcast and are doing it with me, and that you did the webinar today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. And we'll see you next time. We appreciate you for watching and tuning in. We'll see you on the next podcast, everybody.